Welcome, real estate transaction engineers. How you doing out there? I got my good friend Jordan Sylvester from Canada, and he's crushing it up there. Now, it's a different ball game in Canada, especially when Jordan told me about these mortgages. It's a different ball game. We're gonna actually go through a deal today, and we're gonna show you how it's done in Canada. Jordan, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Jordan Sylvester. I'm a realtor up here in the great country of Canada, live in Windsor, Ontario. Been investing, helping clients invest for 16 years, been investing myself for 5 in a meaningful way. So that's a little bit of my background. My dad's been in the business. He's retired now, but he was in the business since 88. So been around the block in real estate for a number of years now. So got a lot of experience through the highs, the lows, and all the fun in between. So
now, Jordan, what do you like more, the agent side or the investor side?
I like the investor side from when I started in 19 until 2022 March. And then I really did decide I probably like real estate a little bit better on the transaction side, only due to the fact that there was a massive adjustment and it was a little unforeseen. So to say that I love investing, I love flipping houses, I love doing the conversions and everything else with them. It's a lot of fun to see the projects from the excitement side. Real estate as a transaction is always fun, helping people find their home, helping people find those investments. So for me, headed back towards the real estate game more than the investment game, just due to the current market situation. And when you look at it from a transactional level, it's harder to get those flips to have that same pop like they did a couple of years ago when the market helped a little bit. So it doesn't mean you can't make the money. You just gotta be a lot smarter and consider some of the risks versus before, where basically the market you'd aim to make 30 to 50 grand, and the market would make you another 10 to 20, 30 grand just by the time on market. So just that adjustment. So for me, that's it's getting that trigger to pull again and be like, all right, let's rock and roll. But the market's just shifted, so you got to shift as it comes. You can't think you could just do the same thing all the time. You're going to end up in trouble. You got to give what the market's giving you and work with it. So,
and the crazy thing about it, when the market does shift, it's like it seems like it happens overnight. You can't quite predict it. Everybody tries to, but when it hits, you like, oh
yeah.
my God.
Well, it hits. Well, here's the thing. As a realtor, the problem is you're like, okay, where's the floor? And everyone's like, oh, it can't go any further. It can't go any further. It can't. And no different than, like, here's the thing. Everyone doesn't know anything till it actually happens, till the public makes a decision. You have economists, you have people, but really what I've learned about real estate, it's actually the mentality of the mass. And so when you think about it, you can listen to the economists. That's great. But if the masses say, we don't care what the economist says, then they're going to go do what they want anyway. And so the market can stabilize and hold, because in all reality, if it was all just about the transactional rate of interest rates, then we would see the market actually be lower than it is. But because there is emotion in a lot of the real estate, like you as an investor, I can remove a lot of my emotion because I'm not buying something because I want to live, and I'm buying something because I want to make profit with it. But for those who want to live and buy a home and raise their family, that emotion's still there. So you still get a little bit of that, stability in the market because of it. So it's an interesting thing to watch. And again, I lived through the '08 downturn. I jumped in as that happened. So I do have a bit of experience around this portion of the transition. I didn't ride the wave on the way down the last time. So I didn't have that quick-witted ability to be like, oh crap, this is what's going on. How do I adjust? How do I make those quick decisions? It took me about 6 months to realize what had happened. And in that time, it cost a little bit of money for anyone who was investing. I'm sure if you waited 6 months between when it started to fall and when the end of the fall seemed to have happened, by the time you were looking at it, it wasn't, the world had changed pretty drastically from cash flow to flipping equity to anything. You were trying to find a way to manage what had just happened. And so for those of us who are out there who are all through it now, going back to the side of how do we make some real good money, get the funnels rolling and keep on moving, like that's where we're at again. So
what was the cause of you guys' market dropping? What would you say?
It's interest rate adjustment. So again, just like in the US, we had COVID hit. The Canadian and American governments both did their best to keep the cost of living down for as long as they could when they were locking everything down, doing all their different stuff to try to manage the virus from their perspective of however they felt about it. What that did, though, is they then were like, okay, we got to raise rates because inflation's getting a little bit out of hand. And then it was really out of hand. And then they raised rates a lot faster than they said they would. And so the US did it first. We did it 1%. You guys jumped in March and you adjusted 1%. We adjusted a quarter and then we followed you. And so the issue is you guys climb, we follow, because we're like your little brother. There's 36 million of us here and there's about 360 million of you over there. So when you look at the two together, we're about 400 million people, but we're about 10% of the population. So as a whole country, we're basically like one of your larger states. So when you guys move, we buy a lot of stuff from you. We have Windsor's got the largest border crossing on the planet for things crossing, right? The Ambassador Bridge has more valuable assets crossing it every day than any other land crossing or border crossing in the world. So you guys matter quite a bit to our economy, and we do matter to yours. We do have an effect, but you guys definitely have a greater effect on us. So when you guys raise rates, we have to follow to keep our dollar in line. And then of course, as rates go up, people don't have the same money to borrow. If you were making 50 grand a year and you were able to borrow $400,000 mortgage, today you can borrow a $200,000 mortgage. Well, it's not that you wouldn't use the 400 grand if they gave it to you. It's that you don't have access to it anymore. And that's where I think the biggest shift was in some of that, right? So that's why I say there's still emotion out there that does keep a premium a little bit on it. So people are still spending, but most people have to spend closer to their max now than they did before, where there was a little bit more gravy in there because you're at 2%. Now you're at 6%. So when you're looking at that interest payment, that's a big adjustment. And when you're getting into renewals and you got a 3%, you're going to 6%, you got to consider that. Like you mentioned earlier, we have 5-year terms as a general rule down here. You can go 1 and you can get up to a maximum of about 10 years with certain institutions, but most people, I would think, would take a 5-year fixed rate here. And then after 5 years, it opens back up to whatever the rates are at the time, and you renegotiate your loan, and you can renegotiate your amortization as well. So, but you guys over there, you guys lock in for the term of that loan. Now we can't unlike the US, none of our banks are owned by human beings. They're all owned by either provinces or they're technically corporations, but they're highly government funded and highly government operated. So we have a lot of things that operate differently between the countries in that respect. And that's part of what makes investing in Canada, investing in the States a little bit different. It's how you get your money. The money at the end of the day is the same. The house at the end of the day they're the same. The way we live is actually quite the same, but the process underneath is very different.
So just say I'm locked in to a mortgage and I'm in 4 years. I got 1 more year left. Interest rates going up to 6%. They was 2%. They're up to 6%. Do I have to get that 6%?
Well, so what ends up happening is you either pay off the loan or you go to the 6%. Now, the benefit of most banks in Canada is they'll just auto renew you. They're not going to check the benefit you have is not going to check your credit score again. They're not going to check your debt portfolio again, and they're not going to check your income again. They're just going to auto renew. So when you go from 2 to 6, the issue is let's say when you got the 2% and you maxed it out at the time to your thing, have you made enough? Like, do you make enough extra? Because we use a TDSR rating. It's around 32% of your net income after debt and up to 42% including debt. So basically, Canada tries to protect you from yourself and not give you the ability just to borrow as much as you earn. And in the US, same thing. It's all about protecting the banks too. But what you have to understand, so if that was your max then, unless you've increased your hourly rate over the last 5 years by probably, like, you were making, let's say, $24 an hour, you probably got to be making almost $30 to $35 an hour to cover the new cost of that mortgage rate adjustment. Because if you think 300 grand and you adjust by 4%, that's $12,000 a year. That's $1,000 more a month in interest every month that you have to pay out of pocket. How many people have an extra grand just lying around? If you're a normal guy working a normal job, man, like I'm a realtor. You're in the business of flipping homes. So, like, you know what I mean? We have an ability when we have to go get that extra money and go find it. And a lot of people who don't have those skills or the ability to go find that extra money, how are they going to go come up with an extra 12 G's a year? Right? You're trying to survive and feed your family, let alone deal with that. So it gets a little interesting.
Do y'all have a lot of foreclosures up there?
We're not seeing a lot of foreclosures yet. We get a few of them. We have power sale. So again, repo in the US, power sale in Canada, slightly different concept. It's not the best way to describe it is in Canada, the bank has an obligation to get maximum value for the property, no matter what the circumstances of the loan attached to it. And then if there's profit after the fact, that's actually still goes back to the original owner. In the US, when you repo the property, it's just different. To totally understand exactly how the let's say the courts work in that dynamic and where all the money goes in that situation. I am not one to understand that at a high level. So if a repossession happens, like if you go to the bank, drop your keys off and say, yeah, I'm giving this back to you, I don't know what your liability is to that loan that you had on the property. In Canada, you are liable. The bank will sue you if there's a less than enough equity in the property to cover that loss. But the bank, if there is profit after all their expenses and their lawyer fees and everything else, there's still some extra money. They actually cut a check back to the original owner. So it's just a very different process. So it helps to hold our market up a little stronger because the banks can't just liquidate for what the loan asset is like you can in the US. And so what we see with that is that you tend to hold on. And banks up here, again, the way that we've protected people for the most part, we shouldn't have a ton of it. But like I said, when you raise, if somebody's going from 2 and we're still at 6 right now, the benefit is going from about 2019 rates, you're still about 3.5. So that the adjustment right now is about 2%. Well, 2% on 300 grand is only $6,000, $500 a month. Maybe you can scrape together a side hustle, do something a little extra to find that. But if you got to come up with an extra $1,000 or $1.5 a month because of your mortgage, I think that's where a lot of people, unless they have a secondary income, get a second job, find some side hustle. And again, a lot of these people have families. And like I said, cost of groceries has gone up, cost of gas has gone up. You know, it's just, it's not to say that it's anyone's fault but our own for putting ourselves in those spots, but it would have been nice to know like the government was going to do this, right? It's always nice to be able to predict the future, but a lot of us, if we could, you know, we'd all be billionaires, trillionaires if we could predict the future. So
I know, right? Oh man. So what do you like to do on the investment side? Like, do you like to do a lot of fix and flips or what? Are y'all, quick thing, are y'all able to do subject to deals or creative financing where they can deed the property over to you and you just take over the payments?
So you have to deed change title in Canada. So again, you guys run with title companies, we run through lawyers there, and then the lenders would have to allow that to happen. So a lot of our lenders are locked in. They have to reapprove the new person. You can't just move debt that way. So yes, we do assumable mortgages. The property we'll actually review today has an assumable mortgage attached to it. It's at 2.5% for another, I think it's 28 months. So again, you get 2.5% for 28 months, and then 385 would come up, or it'd probably be about 370 by the time it's paid down at whatever 6%. And it's still a cash flow positive property in that scenario. But when you're looking at it, the benefit of being able to assume a 2% mortgage in the current climate, well, you're saving 4% or 3.5% on the variance. So again, that's just benefit to your cash flow till you have to deal with it. But by 2 to 3 years, the expectation is hopefully interest rates are closer to 4%. So again, if you just have to make sure that deal makes sense as you buy it, to add that extra line in to make sure that your refinance isn't going to put you out of cash flow with the property, or why would you invest in something that at the end of the day is not going to be worth more than it is now? If they raise interest rates, markets are going to still take time to crawl up in value, right? So
are y'all on the decline on the interest rate, or y'all still going up?
No, so it looks like we're on the way down. The fixed rate, so that 5-year term rate we were chatting about, it's on the way down. Our prime rate, which is attached to the Fed that you guys have in the States, attached to the Bank of Canada here, that rate is still staying. It hasn't moved yet. We're going to get our first look at that coming up in just a month or so to see if they're going to transact that down by a quarter or more. My best guess is we'll see the first drop in the rate probably closer to end of May. Early June. So end of the second quarter of the first year. I think they're going to see how the first year plays out to see how the inflation's acting here. Now, the benefit we have is if the US cuts their rates, that means your dollar gets weaker, which means we have to weaken our own dollar, which means we have to lower the value of our dollar, which means we have to lower interest rates to increase. It's the way the economics work from my understanding. And I'm trying to understand that a lot better now, because as the US operates, I got to think you guys do something a few weeks later, we're likely going to follow, because we have to keep our dollar about $1.30 to $1.35 with you guys. So that means you come to Canada, you get a 35% bonus because you give us one of your dollars, we'll give you $1.35 Canadian. So the benefit for that is if you're going to sell stuff to us up here, we buy it from you, we pay you in US, so you're getting $1.35 from us. So the benefit of the US dollar at that strength is then they buy from Canada because we're cheaper, right? The problem is if we get too close to you, then it's not worth buying from us because there's not enough margin for them to worry about the border and everything else. So we build cars, we have wood, we have industry of gas and oil and all those things. So we need the 360 million people to buy our stuff because there's only 36 million of us up here. And our economy does rely quite a bit on the U.S. economy. So,
wow. So they very similar.
yeah, we follow like, so like at one point I remember when I was a kid, it was like $1.65. Like you guys, to buy a US dollar was $1.65, and at one point it was 98 cents. We actually were ahead of you guys. But the issue when we do that, they're all temporary adjustments. Most of the time it's going to be between $1.25 and $1.35. Right now it ranges up between about $1.35 and $1.42. And we're following that line. And so when you see that happening, you're just like, okay, for both economies to operate well with the way the world is set up, that seems to be that sweet spot. That the $1.33 is like that nice little warm spot where both countries. But again, if you guys lower your interest rate, we have to kind of stay in pace so that our dollar and your dollar kind of stay at that same rate. And so Canada does have control. We can choose not to, but if we do, the impact on our economy can be pretty drastic. So.
Wow. So we got a deal. Jordan brought us a deal. Let me see if I can add this to this. Can you add it on your side, Jordan? Well, it says for me. Let me see if I can add
it. It's on. Yeah. So that's there. And then there's a second page to it. So this is the end result of a big deal that I put together. I bought it myself, put it back together, and then JV'd it to keep ownership. And now it's actually up for sale. At 624,000. I originally bought the property for 175, put about 146 into it, flipped it with my investors, sold it to ourselves for about 500, invested another 60 in to put the basement unit in, turned around after we did that. Then we've rented all 3 units out, and that's what you're looking at as it stands now. And so with the current setup we cash flow right around $1,700 a month with it being managed. Under the current thing, we had the basement unit financed at 8% for $66,000, and the main portion of the mortgage is held that way. And I put up 60. My other business partner put up 60 grand to basically create a reserve fund. And when we bought it at 500, pay all the fees to get it closed. So when we run it kind of like I run most of my rentals with, especially with partners, with a reserve fund. Same thing you'd see in a condo building, primarily so nobody ever has to ask anybody for money. There's enough money to fix pretty much anything. If there's vacancy or things that need to happen at the property, I'm not going to tap on your door and have to come say, I need $500. It's just there. And at the end of the year, we do an accounting of the property and everyone takes their money. We don't do monthly cash flow with a lot of them unless somebody needs it. Then we can always have a conversation because there's just cash sitting in an account. But at the end of the year, we look at it and then we break it apart based on the JV agreement. But this property has also this is the one that's got that mortgage of 385 grand at 2%. And so that is assumable. I don't put it out on this form specifically because you have to have the right realtor or the right buyer on the other side to truly understand the value of doing that and the extra steps it might take to get the value out, right? Because again, you have a 5-year term. You can blend that 5-year rate with your new rate at 6% and maybe get the benefit of getting, let's say, a 4.5% interest rate today on a continued 5-year term, and you'll lose some of the cash flow, but you'll gain the ability to add some more money to the deal and everything else too. So there's some pretty lucrative things you can do, but again, dealing with everybody, you got to be able to explain it to the other side. One of the things I'm usually pretty good at, but again, some people it's like, oh, I don't understand. Okay, well, why don't you just buy it? You guys go get your own financing. We'll just pay out the mortgage. No big deal. So
it looked like this one's cash flowing about 47 a month, 47.5.
Yeah, 4.75. If it were vacant today, we'd probably be closer to 5 if we rented. It is inclusive, so that we pay utilities on that, and you can see that in the next lines. You got electricity and water, you've got gas, you've got the breakout there. Repairs on it because it was fully rented in 2020. The repairs quite low because we have the reserve fund. So for the way that we've designed it, it does need a furnace and AC at some point. So you got another $10K that's got to be paid out. But other than that, roof's just done, windows and everything are pretty solid, floors, plumbing, electrical, all touch, new kitchens, new baths, all that stuff. So $125 a month for maintenance on the property. You're just trying to build that back up. So over like 3 to 4 years, you'll have $5 grand. You do one of those bigger projects, 3 to 4, you know what I mean? So some people use different numbers in different arenas. These are what I use. This is, again, I always look at it from the basis of what the house is. So if I don't do things, keep a reserve fund to take care of the big pieces, and then I run it so that all the maintenance is, call it normal day-to-day breakdown. And then we have the reserve fund to take care of vacancy and everything else.
Yeah, that reserve fund is very important. We students on these creative financing deals that we do. always put up at least 5 or 10% of your profit a month, at least minimum. You want to have
Yep.
something reserved, even though, because when we buy them subject to existing mortgages and liens, we put people in on a lease with the option to buy. So we're not responsible for the repairs, but we handle anything that's over $1,000. So like the AC or something go out, we'll take care of that. But a little minor stuff under $1,000, you got to take care of yourself. So
Gotcha.
it's pretty beneficial because most of the time, thank God, nothing really goes out.
Right.
And I like doing a lease with the option to buy because, I don't have anybody come tonight. Hey, my toilet tore up. Can you come fix it? So it works out pretty well. And you got about 10 to 15% of people that will actually buy the property.
Right.
So if they buy, hooray, we're happy. If they don't, it's no big deal. They move out, we'll get another non-refundable down payment and put somebody in there, go back to cash flow.
Yeah.
So those are very beneficial to do that like that. So this deal here, Jordan, are you looking to sell this one?
Yep. That's up on the market right now. It's listed at 624.9. Again, with the assumable mortgage in the background, it's sitting there, which adds some value. So it depends on the buyer, but we're getting some traction on it already. It's January, but it's out there. So again, you know what? It's because of it's got that general unit in the basement. With that unit in the basement in the area, and technically it does not apply with city things. So we do this creative thing where we just basically we have the main floor basement tenant, and just each person pays their portion, and we agree that we'll never go after the other person for the default of the other one, right? So I have to have a little bit of creative negotiating, because if the city were to come by and look at the property, they'd say, well, you're not allowed to have 3 units. I'm like, I don't. I've got one unit on the main floor, one upstairs, and the basement's just part of the main floor unit, even though it's got a separate kitchen, bath, 2-bed, right? But
Right.
It's what the lease says. So you got to be careful. You got to learn games are. You got to understand what the city can and can't do. Whenever you're communicating, I've learned with different entities, whether it's the banking institutions, the insurance companies, the city, all of the different entities that can come by, you want to make sure that you're in compliance with all the regulations, but at the same time, there's ways where you can, circumvent or find a way to do exactly what they say you're not supposed to, but in a way that they can't stop you. Then that's, I think, the game.
Yeah. And real estate entrepreneurs, we got to learn how to maneuver.
Yep. And communicate with the person when they show up at the door, and how you say what you're going to say. Because if you don't know how to respond to you need to educate the tenant on how to talk, because they don't, hey, you don't want to be homeless. Don't rat me out kind of attitude. And B, it's at the end of the day, if it happens, it happens. You need to know your risks in this business. Sometimes if you're going to do certain things that don't always comply 100% with all the bylaws or the different circumstances of your community, you got to take on the added risk as the investor. And as long as you know it's there, then you can plan for it. And if it comes up, you deal with it. So,
right. Yeah, I do agree. You have any pictures on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to send you, that's just the property there, but I'm actually going to share my screen with you.
Okay. Let me see. I may have to come out of here.
That one. Oh.
Can you let me click out of here. Maybe that's it. That's the problem.
Okay. I'm just gonna. I think what's happened is
they just changed this thing.
Go. Is that what's showing? Yeah. So if you put the one that I just dropped in up, you'll see it there, and you can see the larger photo, and then
let's see. Hold on. See what this is.
So then you got your entry. So there's walk-in main floor. Oop, I don't know where it went. Let's back to the slide. Back to that. There you go. So then you got the kitchen space. So there's your kitchen renovation.
Okay,
yeah. So this chamber unit, that door goes back to the hallway to the, you got your egress at the front and the back. So then you got, that's the one of the big bedrooms on the main floor. It could have been a 3rd bedroom. It's just the way the house is hard. There's a smaller bed there, bath, upper unit, nice big open space. Right, front of the property, another kitchen, very similar, right? The units look very much the same. Bedroom, bath, laundry at the front of the property. So you have your in laundry for that unit upstairs. This is one of the cooler features of this property is the attic access is right up here, and this beautiful deck that outlooks. It's just a nice place to hang out and relax. And then you got
Looks
this is
pretty
the
nice.
basement. This is the basement unit. So you can see that it's a little short, right? You can see these upper cabinets are a little low. The door, you can see it's got the water suppression system as well. It's a little tight down there. 2 beds down there. Not a lot of space overall. But again, it rents out for $1,350 inclusive downstairs. There's the laundry in the basement. There's the backyard. So again, it's just solid. We did the roof. We did all the siding. We did some of the windows, especially in the basement. As you can see, that AC, like I mentioned, you can tell it's a little bit weathered. So, if it works, I don't, especially when it's something I can hire a quick contractor to go out and touch. All the plumbing with electrical was done. So that project took my guys probably about 6 months to complete. Like I said, it was $150,000, 46 grand invested, about $175 for it. Sold it for $505. And then put that other money in. It's only worth it's probably not worth a ton more than what we have invested in with my investors. They're just looking at doing something else with the money. So like with the cash, we're not urgent to sell it, but at the same time, my guy who's one of my partners and it just asked me if we could liquidate the asset. And I said, of course. So because again, when you're in partnerships, one of the things, and I would usually buy them out, to be absolutely honest, just financially where my personal finances are right this moment. Getting the liquid cash back in my hands gives me a better opportunity to do some other flips, do some other opportunities than to hold on to the asset long term. As a long term cash flow asset, this thing would be very good. I know we've chatted. You prefer in and out strategy versus long term hold. I don't mind the long term hold situation. I would have if the market hadn't shifted like it had. So things are always about what you're doing with the current reality of your finances. So that's the property in a nutshell. And this was the third property I did, and then I did a couple others that were all more wholesale retail. And then so basically get them under contract, liquidate them for 30 grand, and do some of that stuff. But and then I got into as I chatted with you about where I bought 7 in like a month and a half, and we had to adjust to the market change. And those ones don't have any positives. They all have negatives, but it is what it is. Make decisions, live and learn.
Yeah, we live and learn, man. Some people let it take them out the game, though. But it's part of, you're going to have some wins and losses. As long as you're winning more than you're losing.
That's it. Well, at the end of the day, you just understand you're not going to make every right decision. You're probably not all the right information. The biggest lesson I'll take from this is when things change and you're uncertain of what's going to happen next, the best decision is probably to cut your losses and wait to still some more stability like there is again now. When we have market continually rising, as soon as it shifted down, the opportunity there would have been to liquidate. And even if there's a loss of future opportunity, you're not you can always get back invested in the opportunity as it continues. But when you're as leveraged as I was, which was over leveraged in the end of the day, probably would have been smart to limit my leverage and get out of deals that would possibly have very limited exit strategy and very limited opportunity for cash flow to carry. So, because if I would have done probably liquidated 3 of the 7, I could have probably 4, and they all ended up just fine. So, but because I kept them all and didn't want to risk the loss of the expected profit, that cost me about 80 grand each in the wrong direction.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, live and learn. I'll say this. I always say it's my PhD in investing and my PhD in real estate investing. I've been a realtor a long time, man. And I'm okay to admit that I thought I knew what I thought I knew, and I found out I sure shit didn't.
Hey, one of my friends always say, you don't know what you don't know.
Yep. And so now I do know, which is an amazing lesson. And people always ask me, well, would you? I'm like, no, I'm going to keep the lesson. You know what? Because I'll say this: if I probably didn't learn it there, I was going to learn it at some point. And when I learned it, it might have been a lot worse than what just happened.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty bad. I'm like, no, I'm in a position I can survive these. Imagine if millions. I got people who smoke for $millions in these. There's a lot of kind of business. You see that devastation, people going through some health issues, man. Like nothing money is ever worth all that. So
you're breaking up a little bit, Jordan. Yeah, nothing's worth your health, man. I mean, all this stuff. I haven't saw anyone die and take any of this stuff with them.
No,
Not the
we
cars,
don't get it.
not the money, not the houses, nothing. Not even your clothes. We can't let this stuff kill us and take us out, man. We just got to keep moving. And, hey, what doesn't kill you make you stronger.
That's it, man.
And why?
Friend, like you learned it in 06, 07, 08, and we were chatting. Then you're like, man, I had to learn, and you had to check those. You men in your life to get through that.
Yeah, it's not easy when you're going through it though. But once it's over, you can see through the smoke. When the smoke clears, you're like, oh, okay. Whew, I made it. I'm not in the hospital having a heart attack. Hey, I'm blessed.
Well, hey man, in fact, we get to have a conversation, enjoy life together, create a relationship. At the end, like anybody, I'm so grateful. The only way I survived was because of amazing relationships in my life, people who were able to come alongside me and show me great moment where it just felt like everything was a failure. Right? Yeah, I made mistakes, but they looked at it, but you learn from them. Don't let them get it, man. Don't let that be a defining moment, negative way, any moment in a positive way. Look at it and go, never again am I going to put myself in that position, and never again am I going to have this attitude to myself. Because you go to dark places, you get to that place where it's like, well, I'm definitely worth more dead than alive, right? And again, it's not I always tell my brain that from a perspective of not from a perspective of emotion. It's not a suicidal thought, it's just a practical reality. And sometimes you look at life and you're like, man, you're trying to build for your family, your legacy, and then you're sitting there in your life going, oh, that feels like the last 5 years have been right. Everything just built away, and you're like, all that extra life and wealth is gone. You're just like, man, I guess I'm back at zero. But the funny part is I'm not, because I got all that extra education to do way smarter and way better things in the long term, right? So.
Right. And this right here, Joe, this is just the MLS printout of it.
Yeah, that's just the MLS. And then I'm on the MLS on the other one there where we rolled through the photos. That's like if you were to go search 764 realtor.ca, this is basically what would pop up. It'd be a little more. This is the realtor version of the form, so of course that one's going to be fancier and look a little nicer. This is all the data information on it. So,
guys, you're looking for a nice. It's like a triplex. You look for a nice triplex. Hey, this is it. Up in Canada. And how far away are you from the US line? The
I can be in Michigan in 10 minutes.
Woo!
So I can be across the border in 10 minutes. And the news they're putting in, that's technically 2 minutes to the Gordie Howe Bridge. So we benefit of Windsor Essex is we get the benefit of being we're basically South Detroit. That's how Kwame Kilpatrick, the previous mayor who came over here while he had court issues and wasn't supposed to leave the country, just came to us. Man, I'm just in Windsor. It's like, dude, that's a different country. And we as growing like when I was, we just hit the door with like, we have our, there's no photo on that. Like 14 years with my buddies to go to a time for like $2, you could sit up and see the bleacher seats, $1 hot dog and like for hot, like, so for like, you go to the place, you watch a game out, you got to have a actual pops because you're a kid and a couple of hot dogs and you're at a great time. So 9 happened and when things change, right? You have to have a passport and some other realistic, like the Lions game, right? Yeah, I can afford field in 30 minutes on the day the Lions because of traffic. But like if I were just to leave tonight, right now, drive over to Michigan, get to Park or Ford Field, LSA, those sporting events, 30 minutes. We even have a bus. So you can, if you don't have too many pops, you can take a tunnel bus across. It'll pick you back and bring you back.
Wow.
So
you have to show your passport and everything. What do you have to show when you cross the line?
Passport. You just need a passport now to get across. You can use like this, or if you've got like an enhanced driver's license, there's a few different things, but basically you just have to have an ID to get across the border. If you're 18, you can still cross with family and stuff. Sometimes without a passport, it really just depends. But the best thing to do is get a passport. It's only I get a 10-year for $180, right? So you're talking about $8 a year to cross the border. Not really it.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
So that's a year, 180 a year.
No, 180 for 10 years. Yeah. It's I had mine almost expired. It showed up in a week. I had to get a photo done and get everything for it. So again, in Windsor, if you live in Detroit, like a lot of Americans don't come to Windsor. There's honestly, outside of if you want to be an investor and you want to buy some real estate, then there might be some reasons to come. We do have a casino, but there's 3 across the border. So Windsor, from the American side, the only benefit that we have a drinking age of 19 over here. So a lot of young people want to get across the border and come a couple years early because you guys are 21 over there. If you go another 8 hours north of us, you can get to 18 if you go to Quebec. So Quebec's 18 for the drinking age. We're 19 here in Ontario. So again, as a younger man, the Americans would come over and we would be the Canadians and the Americans, and there's a little bit of excitement downtown with a bunch of drunk idiots. But that's a previous life. But most of the time we all get along pretty good. It's only when we play when our teams play each other that this stuff get a little exciting, right? So
wow. That's pretty cool, man. You're that close too. You can go right back and forth.
Yeah, and Chicago, 4 hours.
And you was just down here. You say you was in South Carolina?
Yeah, it's in Hilton Head. We drove 14 hours. We stayed in Charlotte on the way down, and we took the straight drive back. So we came down. We stayed in Charlotte overnight, and then we drove to Hilton Head. Because we're the Canadians. One guy saw me in shorts and t-shirt. He's like, "You must be from Canada because it's December down there." Like, yeah, and it's nice. It's 55 degrees. I'm gonna take every opportunity to wear my shorts, right? So. You laugh about it. We were just down there 14th to the 22nd, getting home just in time for Christmas, so the wives don't get too upset with us. So,
right on time.
Right on time. Get back there so that they, got to be careful. That request was a little bit like, I wonder if I'm going to get out, right? Like, my wife does, most very kind to me in the sense of letting me do a lot of things, but that one's like right there at Christmas. It's like, I'll be back for Christmas Day, I promise. I'm just going to go golf for a few days, babe. She's like, all right, go ahead. I'm like, oh, man. So it's good to have a good woman beside you that supports you. Know that sometimes you need a little bit of downtime just to, get yourself set up and come back and, hustle, do that hard work, put in the hours, put in the time.
Right. So. You're right. That's very important. Your partner is very important. They said a wife is like a business partner. Don't marry a person you wouldn't go into business with.
Yeah.
So it really is, because you're with them every day, all day. You share finances and everything together.
Yeah. If you have a business partner that you can't fight with, then they're not probably a good business partner, because you need to be able to have real conversations at times so that both people are on the same page.
Yeah.
And so again, early on in my marriage, I'm 15 and a half years down the road now. But early on in my marriage, I wasn't as bright of a bulb. And so I would just hold things back and I wouldn't say things. And now I'm just like, I'll just tell you the truth. You don't have to like the truth. And she can tell me the truth. I don't have to like her truth. The reality is, though, as long as I understand things, then at least I know what's going on. Even if I don't agree with her position, you don't have to agree with each other. The cool part is business partners. You don't have to agree with each other. You just have to have real communication so that both of you are on the same page.
Right. Yep. I totally agree. Totally agree. So, Jordan, how can people get in contact with you if they're interested in buying this property or just want to connect with you?
Yeah, if you just want to reach out, you can go to jordansylvester.com. If you want to reach me direct, you can reach out at 519-960-0350, and that be a direct number. You could also you can email me at jordan@sylvesters.ca. If you see the name spelling here on the podcast, just add an S at the end of .ca between them. That's as simple as my email is there. If you want to reach out with this specific program, if you want to take a look at it, you don't have to do anything more than go and Google it online. It'll pop up on realtor.ca. So, not America, guys. It's on the realtor.ca site. You can look up if you have any other questions or you want to reach out about other properties. We got like I've spent a lot of my time dealing in single family conversions, doing these bases, whether that is in the duplex, so I can triplex, or I take single family and then do duplex mother-in-law suite unit. But we've got all kinds of university opportunity up here. We've got college university areas. We've got the bridge project, short-term rentals opportunity. Airbnb, we have it, but again, requires a little bit of finessing within some of the municipalities that are being difficult around short-term rentals and such. So again, one of the benefits, if you do want to work with me up in this group, I do have a lot of people who are in my field of view who let's call it bend the rules for the benefit of your pocketbook. That's the way I say it, so that you can do the things you're trying to do, and you'll know the things the lines are. So at least you understand that if and when there does say somebody might come by and say you're not allowed to do that, you at least know that they're probably right. They just have to renegotiate how you still continue to cash flow that property and make your profits. At the end of the day, we all know the longer you invest in real estate, the more you have to learn to figure out those sly ways of either getting the deal done, finding that loophole around over here, finding that extra cash, the extra incentive, whatever it is to make these deals make more sense for you and your family.
It's all about maneuver.
Yep.
And
agile.
Cash flow. Like I tell you, you got to cash out. You want some of those nice hits, but you definitely got to have that cash flow.
Cash
so
flow.
You want to go take your 2 or 3 month vacation is still flowing.
Yep.
Still flowing. Well, thank you, Jordan. You have any last words for people out there that's just...
Yeah, well, man, thank you so much for having me on. It was great to chat. I just love learning. So it's always great to hear other people's stories, see how they're doing this game. Again, Canada game is a little bit different. So if you're looking to get involved up in our region, just reach out to a realtor. Doesn't have to be me, man, but just please understand before you start to invest in another country, know the rules of the game. And that's one of the things, like, I understand some of the rules in the US, but that's why I say I don't fully get it. I'm not about to go do that on my own, even though I've got a lot of knowledge as a realtor. The other thing I would tell you is remind yourself of your own personal risk. When you're playing this game, try to make sure you're not leveraging your family and their lifestyle at the same time, because that's something I didn't honestly realize I did. And that was one of the biggest lessons I had to learn. Was I thought I was taking a risk when I was willing to lose money because I was in a wealth position. And when all the wealth disappeared simultaneously from my personal world and my investment world, then I put my family in a greater risk because I didn't realize that my wealth personally would be as affected as my wealth invested. And when you realize that most of your wealth's in real estate, if real estate falls in one corner, it's going to fall in the other, right? So yeah, it's a little bit of wisdom from a man who used to think he quite a bit to a man who understands now he's got to learn a lot more and keep on learning this whole game. You know, the next 20 years, still all it is just learning and growing. So,
yes, sir. Thank you so much, Jordan. Guys, Canada, hey, it's a big opportunity up there.
Yeah,
big opportunities. And one more thing, Jordan. How long do you think the market is going to stay down, or do you see sometimes in the future it coming back up?
Well, so we're already seeing a rise in adjustment. We're seeing, because the government and the media and some people are starting to say they're going to come down, people start to act a little bit more panic, and we're seeing those multiple offers and things reappear. As long as, like, if you can say to close in 30 days, 30-day reno and get back out of it right now, it's a great time to do that, because I actually think the spring market is going to push. As far as we have the U.S. election coming up in November and looking to our election the following year, there are some things that are just to predict about how the market could be long-term. I would say either you better have a 10-year plan or you have like a 6-month plan or less, or I'd be a little cautious to the market because I think that when you're having an influx of change, especially with policies and governments, you have to remember they're going to do what's best for what will benefit them, necessarily what's best for us as the public. We need to understand that difference in a meaningful way, man. And that's why I said they're saying lowering rates. I was on a podcast last week. The guy goes, "Why did they told us this time the Fed's going to drop the rate 3 times this year?" I'm like, that's a really good question. Why did they tell us? Because they don't tell us. They don't tell us they're going to drop the rates and when they're going to do it. They usually wait, and it's like everyone's waiting for it. They're saying outright they're going to do it. It's like, what? And then he goes, "Do you think they're actually going to do it and then jump it?"
Uh-oh, I think we lost you, Jordan. Sorry, y'all. Think we lost Jordan for a second. Jerome, how are you? Okay, you're back.
Dude, I'm not sure what happened there. Anyways, yep. So that's my 2 cents around. I would say that if you want to invest, you're thinking about something, even in the US, from my understanding, is I would do it, but I'd put a 6-month clock on it. Don't get into a long-term project. And then same idea, unless you're going to make it into a beautiful, it's going to cash flow like a king, then those you do every day. Never, ever walk away from one of those opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Jordan.
All right, my friend.
Thank y'all, real estate transaction engineers. Keep growing and going, baby. Never give up, never quit on yourself. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon.
See you.